In Venice, for the first time in Europe, the stench of the Dark Ages suddenly gave way to a pleasant fragrance, thanks to the arrival of an exotic beauty from Byzantium. This newcomer was Theodora Dukas, who in the 11th century married the Doge Domenico Selvo. Attractive, elegant, and sophisticated like her anonymous empress, she caused an immediate sensation. She not only ate with a fork, but she also used perfume. The trend sparked by the beautiful Dogaressa was destined to attract a large following, and before long the tireless merchants of the Serenissima were importing perfumes from Greece, Persia, Egypt, Constantinople, and the most refined courts of Arabia. When Marco Polo returned home in the late 13th century, he brought with him the glands of the musk deer, a small mammal from which the distinctive fragrance of the same name is obtained, as well as the description of how to extract it and use it. For Venice, it was the start of a great love affair, but also of a thriving market. The Serenissima increasingly established itself as the greatest importer of fragrant extracts. The city's dogana received precious shipments of ambergris, civet, sandalwood, aloe, and sweet-smelling spices, which were highly sought after by the apothecaries for the creation of their new odorous concoctions. It was a short step from importation to processing and production. In 15th century Venice, for example, there was a craze for uccellini di cipro, or cypress birds, censers in which small sculptures made of scented paste were burnt. Accordingly, the word perfume comes from Latin perfumum, or by means of smoke. But the spezieri, who were veritable alchemists of scent, did something revolutionary. By diluting fragrant extracts in pure spirits, they paved the way for modern-day perfumes and eau de toilette. The use of ethyl alcohol was only introduced many years later in France. While the rest of the world continued to look down on the ordinary practice of washing oneself as insalubrious or even sinful, in Venice an authentic cosmetic speciality emerged in the form of soap, perfumed with a variety of essences. There were about 40 soap makers in Venice in the 16th century, producing many tons per year. For the period, this was a sizable market, and traces of it can still be found in the city's place names. And yet, having obtained the secret, it was Marseille that treacherously went on to assume the paternity of soap. During the Renaissance, perfumes reached their triumph. Venice became the biggest producer of luxury goods, including soaps, perfumes, and rouges. In history's most perfumed century, the noblemen, and especially noble women, emanated exquisite fragrances. Along with maiolica vases for pastes and ointments, their rooms became filled with silver bottles for liquid perfumes, and ivory, horn, and silver cases for pouches of civet or musk. Even rosaries were made with perfumed pastes. Not for devotion, but for lasciviousness, thundered the signoria, concerned as always with their citizens' morality. But the ladies turned a deaf ear, and rushed out to buy anything endowed with a fragrance. Not only the precious essences offered by traders of perfumes, musks, and spices, but also perfumed shoes, gloves, caps, and even coins. For Venice, the Renaissance was an age of cosmetics. Women let their hair go blonde in the sun, wearing crownless hats but with a broad brim, so as to protect their faces, which had to remain purest white. If one's skin lacked the desirable whiteness, it was to be bleached with recipes and techniques that bordered on revolting. Raw veal dipped in milk, or soft bread and vinegar mixed with ox dung. The Venetian women, and they alone, prettified their bosoms with rouge and flaunted them in plunging necklines that revealed their ruby-red nipples. The signoria's severity grew, but the women paid no heed. With the booming perfume market, musk and civet were worth their weight in gold, and they found their way into Italy's most important courts. In Milan, the Maestro dei Profumi of Ludovico il Moro was none other than Leonardo da Vinci. In Mantua, the beautiful and cultivated Marquise Isabella d'Este, a true first lady of the Renaissance, invented and spread the use of perfumes and cosmetics, including a forerunner of toothpaste, and she also launched the fashion of hairpieces. Production workshops began to spring up in Florence, and from there they spread throughout the European courts. Here again this development is owed to a charming young lady. Catherine de' Medici, who in 1533 married the future King of France. When she moved to the French court, she took her trusted perfumer Renato Bianco with her, along with the formulas of the monks of Santa Maria Novella. France was enthusiastic, and Renato became René le Florentin, the progenitor of French perfumes. Italy and France competed in creativity and quality. 50 years later, while visiting Venice, Catherine's fourth son, King Henry III of France, visited the atelier of Maestro Domenico Ventura, a perfumer in the Merceria at the Sign of the Lily, and he spent 1,125 scudi on musk. For the time, it was a staggering sum. Unsurprisingly, Ventura served the majority of Europe's sovereigns and princes, because in his atelier he kept rare things of the world. Venice was also ahead of the times in other more disputable aspects, such as counterfeiting. Tommaso Garzoni wrote about the phenomenon, citing those who did not hesitate to falsify every kind of odour and fragrance in 1,000 ways and means. Perfumers' ateliers increasingly resembled alchemists' caverns, where, instead of the philosopher's stone, the quest was to discover and invent new aromas for ladies and gentlemen. Each had his own formulas, which were naturally veiled in secrecy. However, since the Venetians were already acquainted with the mysterious art of publicity, these secrets were rendered public and competitive with an unscrupulous communication strategy in books and pamphlets. Indeed, a great buzz was generated around a booklet published in 1555, titled The Famed Secrets of the Perfume Arts. It contained 300 recipes dedicated to personal grooming, from cosmetics to scents. The entire female universe was explored, from hair dye to face cream, from toothpaste to breath fresheners, but above all, perfumes in every form, solid, liquid, oily and powdered, to fragrance everything from the body to clothes and even gloves. Then there were the ingredients: musk, civet, spice bush resin, aloes wood, Ceylon cinnamon, orange blossom and Damascus roses, ambergris, as well as flower and fruit extracts. The same ingredients also perfumed the Venetian Republic during the century of its lavish decline, the 1700s. This was the century in which great noses such as Casanova's sniffed the air to follow the sweet-scented trail of an amorous escapade. Then as now, a lady or young bride's beauty paraphernalia could not fail to include a bottle of perfume. The art of perfume radiated from Venice throughout Europe, particularly in France and Germany. Evidence of the sciences, arts and craftsmanship in the long Venetian tradition can be found everywhere. It is no coincidence that in 1709 the grandsons of the Venetian perfumer Caterina Gennari, the brothers Giovanni Maria and Giovanni Battista Farina, created their Eau de Cologne inspired by the 17th century Aqua Mirabilis of Gianpaolo Feminis, which, however, was intended for drinking. The long history of the town of Grasse led it to become the town of perfumers, with a flourishing production of floral and fruit essences that were so dear to the beautiful but ill-fated Queen Marie Antoinette. Then, alas, Napoleon arrived in 1797, and France took over everything from Venice to supremacy in perfumes. It was the beginning of the modern era of fragrances. Gradually, the great international and Italian designer names were established, along with the thousands of perfumes that today pleasure our noses, offering relief from modernity's olfactory insults. However, in all these myriad fragrances, whether ancient, modern, classical or futuristic, there will always be some age-old molecule pertaining to the great Venetian history of perfumes. Because Venice was, is, and always will be the city where one breathes the scent of beauty, refinement, and elegance.